So let's talk about good cause evictions. This is an article by City Journal. Just discovered this website. It's pretty good, and I think everybody should bookmark it and read it. So some more news coming out of New York for landlords, but I'm pretty sure once New York starts adopting ideas like that, LA and California are soon to follow. Basically, these are interchangeable ideas for progressives, and basically, well, actually, as an aside, I do own rental units in Los Angeles. Somebody wants to rent one of them, and I was having an attorney draft up a lease, like a real legit lease. It's going to be 16 pages. So stand up in court and everything like that, And one of the things she told me is, hey, you better try to get the most rent out of these tenants possible, because there'll be no rent increases for the next 4 years. Crazy, huh? Which is, that's an amazing, because inflation is running about 10% right now. Like, if you have $100 after 2021, it's worth $90. Like 10% of, and here's the thing, man. I love real estate. It's good on like 5 metrics. It's like one of the best investments ever. You have locked interest rate while inflation and rents go up with inflation, but your payments are locked. If you get a locked interest rate for 30 years, which is not available to, those loans are, aside from real estate, those loans are not available for any other business. You get appreciation. You get tax write-offs, big tax write-offs. You get payment, like every time your tenants pay, they pay down the principal on your mortgage. There's all these amazing, great things about real estate. The only one thing horrible about real estate, it's stuck in a physical place. And once you're stuck in a physical place, it's very like an old school. Let's say you're a programmer, and you can work from anywhere. Well, welcome to the 21st century. You could live anywhere in the world, and you can pick a jurisdiction that's going to be friendly to taxing you, or to wherever you want to live. Live on the beach, whatever. Live on the Bahamas, live in a tax haven, live in Vietnam, wherever. The thing about real estate is very old school, like a factory. You can't move the real estate. You can only sell. And some people do, but these buildings you're at the whim of these socialist Democrats, or just politicians in general, that they gain political power and get elected by promising things out of your pocket, like taxing people who own property. They'll use that, and they pander to the renters, because they know landlords are in the minority and renters are in the majority, so they're going to pander to the renters, and out of your pocket, they're going to win political favor. So here's a prime example of that. Kathy Hochul said, basically, the pandemic, let's see. Oh, yes. Long-running ban on evictions. That's ended, okay? But they have a new horrible idea. Meaning New York's liberal war on private residential property owners, aka landlords, is ending. Case in point, the so-called good clause eviction legislation sponsored by Brooklyn Democrat. It's going to be bad. Brooklyn Democratic Socialist State Senator Julius Salazar. Bill is definitely titled, "No one wants eviction for other than good cause." No, I mean, I'm a radical. I don't care. Yes, you should, yes, the tenant should get some protection as far as like, hey, you have like a 30 or 60-day notice before, the landlord wants to, or if you sign a 1 year lease, you sign a 1 year lease, okay? They can't increase the rent, in between, during the lease that you signed. But your rental property, your assets, is just like basically like it's a distillation of your time. If you spend 10 years of your life saving up to buy this rental property, that means this is 10 years of your life, and people should be completely free. People should be completely free to do what they want with your time and labor and their bodies. And so restricting, putting laws and restrictions on what landlords can charge or whatever, or who can they rent to, that's directly basically putting restrictions and taking away people's effort and time. But of course, I'm a radical. People don't see it this way, so they're gonna pass these good clause evictions. If signed into law, legislation will cause ill effects on housing markets, which are already struggling to recover from the pandemic. It would effectively extend statewide rent regulation that has for so long distorted New York City's housing market and deny property owners the revenue they count on to maintain their buildings. So here it is. Central bill legislature is the idea. Oh, I'm sorry. Central to the bill's language is the idea that eviction for non-payment shouldn't be permitted when a rent increase is unreasonable. So I don't even know what that means. Like, maybe if you increase the rent 10 years ago to an unreasonable level, now they can never be evicted. The devil's, of course, is in the details. The bill defines unreasonable as an increase of either 3% or 1.5 times consumer price index in their region as established each August. In time of high inflation, the flaw here is obvious. Prices along with ownership costs have skyrocketed compared to the last August and are expected to keep rising. In other words, the key metric in this bill is a moving target. Indeed, the annualized U.S. inflation rate was 4.9% this past August, but rose to 6.8% for November. Even the 6.8% is a bullshit number. That's an artificially low number. If you were to measure inflation and how the government did in 1970s, it would be like 10-15%. Because of obviously owner's equivalence rent, that's they pull regular average people what they would charge rent for their house. Obviously those people are not landlords, they wouldn't know, so they're going to be off by 30, 40, 50%. Whatever. But if you look at Zillow rental data, it shows that rents are up 15%, meaning the inflation from the government numbers should be at least at 10. Artificially bullshit low number. You don't have a 6.8% increase. If you're buying materials, you're buying Sherwin-Williams paint, 15% increases. If you're buying brand new doors, I've recently been remodeling a unit and buying doors and stuff like that. Stuff is up 30%. Dishwashers are almost impossible to get a hold. Or you can order from Home Depot or Lowe's and your order be canceled. Inflation's going up a lot. And to think that you'd be stuck at a couple percent increase, an increase that looks reasonable, one moment may become unreasonable the next. And inflation can hit residential property owners in relevant ways. They can't decline to pay increased heating bills for their units, for example. Based on an arbitrary and essentially outdated benchmark, property owners would face a choice between limiting rent increases, notwithstanding their rising costs, or forfeiting their critical resource of eviction. What the Oh my God, what are these people smoking? So if you raise the rent, you got mixed up on the inflation numbers and you accidentally raised the rent like a tiny bit over what the metric is, or they can go back through the years and see that you raised the rent inappropriately 1 year, then that means you could never evict a tenant for non-payment. That person could live in your unit rent-free forever. What does this mean? Expect legions of owners to hold increases to 2.99%, or bring more court cases asserting that tenants have become nuisance, upsetting quality of life in their buildings, for which eviction is still permitted. And keep in mind, the vast majority of eviction procedures don't lead to physical removal of tenants. In effect, they begin an arbitration process that ends in settlement. According to the Eviction Lab, the most comprehensive track of eviction data, evictions in most places in the United States are 40% below the historical average. Yet, August 2020 analysis of the Census Bureau Household Pulse Survey predicted that 30 to 40 million residents could be at risk of eviction. These fatalistic estimates contribute to extension of federal and state eviction moratoriums around the country, while rental property owners were left in the dark. Why did we see a wave of evictions when the moratorium expired? Yep, we didn't. It's important to track measures of tenant need, but not all property owners have large financial cushion. An Urban Institute survey of landlords and tenants in August 2020 found that COVID-19 crisis and the statewide eviction moratorium were disproportionately affecting the availability of Black and Hispanic rental property owners to meet their mortgages, even as 48% of Hispanic and 42% of Black rental property owners still offer their tenants rent payment plans. Listen, man. Basically, what this is going to, if you can't evict people, or it's really hard to kick people out, you know what's that going to lead to? The smart landlords, idiot landlords are going to get stuck with tenants that'll never pay rent, and they're going to lose their rental property and lose money. I guess the smart landlord would read in between the lines, and maybe they would rent to very young tenants. Rent to young tenants that make a shit ton of money, and they know they're only going to need that, to live there for a couple years, and then going to move on. They're not going to rent to families, with women with a lot of children, families that are going to stay there for a long time. They're going to be using this rent control law to limit. You're going to stay in your unit for many, many years, and obviously the longer they stay, the less they're going to fall behind on market rents. In effect, Salazar bill would extend price regulation on residential property statewide, bringing savings for some, but wider costs as well. It would put property maintenance at risk, as well as new capital investment already discouraged by the 2019 rent regulation reform. The 3% rule would also serve as a backdoor way to make statewide rent regulation permanent. Americans believe in providing a safety net for those in need. That's why we provide SNAP assistance, earned income tax credit, Medicaid, and other programs. But none of these programs demand by law that businesses provide discounts to customers. The Good Clause Eviction Bill would ask one class of persons, property owners, to put themselves at risk for not receiving the revenue on which they rely in exchange for dubious social benefit. The author's right, but he's way, way, way too soft. This is complete, they would like to erode all property this is class warfare. They would like to erode all property ownership. They believe us landlords are greedy and evil, and if the landlords would end up losing their rental, then it wouldn't be a big deal for the government to just swoop it up, buy pennies on the dollar, and rent it out to. They think the government would just rent it out almost at like rock bottom prices. But as if you look at the homeless shelters, look at anything that the government provides, even if that plan came to fruition, those units will become so slummy, so roach infested, that they will have to be bulldozed anyway.